Four people are dead after a 19-year-old man went on a shooting rampage in Memphis, Tennessee. Police say 19-year-old Ezekiel Kelly was arrested following a high-speed chase and is being transported to the Shelby County Jail.
A 19-year-old man live-streamed his shooting rampage that left 4 people dead and 3 others injured in Memphis, Tennessee. Now, this story is bringing up more debates about sentencing, whether or not criminal justice reform makes sense. And I want to kind of cut through some of those narratives and get to what I think the real issue is here. Now, to give you some more context into this story, the Memphis Police Department identified the suspect in this rampage, which the authorities said included no fewer than 8 crime scenes, and crossed into neighboring Mississippi as Ezekiel Kelly. Now, the shooting began at 1 a.m. on Wednesday morning and continued through the late evening hours. And residents in the area were advised to shelter in place as the gunman led police on a hours-long manhunt. Luckily, they did find him. They did put him in custody, and he is now facing several serious charges. Now, the mayor of Memphis, Tennessee, was furious at how the justice system worked in this case, because not too long ago, Ezekiel Kelly was behind bars, and he's going to explain in the next video exactly what happened and what he thinks is wrong with how he was sentenced. Let's watch.
Ezekiel Kelly was charged with criminal attempted first-degree murder, but pled guilty in April of 2021 to the lesser charge of aggravated assault. He was sentenced to 3 years, but only served 11 months in prison. The problem is not the Memphis Police Department, because they're arresting people. The problem is this judicial system that will not punish.
So Mayor Strickland argues that he was treated like in a very soft way, that he didn't spend enough time in prison. I think it's important to understand that he was in jail awaiting trial for nearly the amount of time that he was sentenced. So the reason why it appears that he got out after 11 months is because he received credit for time served as the trial was taking place. So CBS News had said, given the time he spent awaiting a resolution of his charges, he likely got credit for time served and spent more than 2 years behind bars. Okay, so I give you that information because I think the debate that's taking place right now is focusing on the wrong issue. The debate is focusing merely on the length of his sentence, which I think doesn't really matter, considering literally the same week we heard about another individual in Memphis, Tennessee, who had served 20 years behind bars for kidnapping. Okay, he was arrested back in 2000. He was convicted of kidnapping an attorney. He was sentenced to 20 years in prison. He served the full 20 years. He was released in 2020. And just this week, we found out that he is now the suspect in a murder involving an elementary school teacher. And so the issue that I have with this debate about sentencing is it completely leaves out the relevant discussion about how unless we do something to reform our prison system, to ensure that it rehabilitates people, it doesn't really matter how much time someone spends behind bars when they get out. If they're imprisoned in a situation where they get raped, where they deal with violence, where they deal with cruel and unusual punishment, okay, solitary confinement, that doesn't rehabilitate people. You could put someone behind bars for 50 years in those conditions, they will come out and they will not be rehabilitated. And that is the issue that I have with a lot of the discussions that are taking place right now about sentencing. And obviously there are other themes here that we've talked about a million times, Cenk, regarding gun violence in this country, the easy accessibility of guns, and all of that. So I wanted you to jump in and share your thoughts before I give you some more details about what happened during this shooting spree.
This story is kind of a perfect combination of all the things that are wrong in American politics. So the guy has incredibly easy access to weapons. By the way, even though he was charged with attempted murder just a couple of years ago. He had 2 weapons in the car, the weapon he used to kill people. Everybody has weapons. Don't worry, the criminals aren't going to get him. Are you nuts? Criminals are going to get him so easy because they were in an ocean of weaponry. And by the way, the gun manufacturers love that. They love when criminals get their hands on guns and kill people, because then it scares everyone else into buying guns. So the right wing has totally screwed us on that. And yes, part of what's happened here is on their head. And then you've got the left wing issues, right? And they're real. So we're supposed to do smart, logical reform. One of the stories we have in the show today is a woman is in jail in Alabama because she smoked a joint while pregnant. I mean, they treated her brutally. Now, that's a thing that needs to be reformed, right? We're stuffing people into prisons for no goddamn reasons on minor crimes. But then on the other hand, because of so-called reform, we're letting a lot of people walk. So in Tennessee, they passed a law saying, no, whatever the sentence we give you is the sentence you have to serve. And now I'm sure that a lot of progressives hate that, which I always say, yeah, but doesn't it depend? Like, if we gave you an 18-year sentence because you smoked a joint, that's mental. We shouldn't do that. We shouldn't have you serve that sentence. You should be pardoned, right? But if we gave you a 3-year sentence on attempted murder, you should probably do the 3 years, right? And so that's an issue for the left. And then finally, for all of us, the thirst for fame. He live streamed some of this because everybody wants to be famous, and a quick way to get famous is to murder people on camera. It's really disgusting.
Yeah, it is disgusting. But again, I just want to reiterate the point that I made earlier, which is to say, talking about whether or not the length of a sentence makes sense is a perfectly fine debate. However, I'm just arguing that in this current environment, where we are not focusing on the incredibly important element of prisons and how they need to be reformed. Like, if we don't provide ways to rehabilitate people as they're incapacitated, as they're in custody, again, it doesn't matter how long they serve behind bars. If the environment in which they're being held turns them into hardened criminals, well, then that's not a justice system. That's not helping anyone. I know that there are some people out there who think, well, the prison system is not about rehabilitation. It's about taking people who pose a threat to public safety, taking them out of that environment and incapacitating them and punishing them. But I disagree. You look at the model in Norway, for instance, where they do absolutely focus on rehabilitation, where they do also take people who pose a threat to public safety out of the public so they can't cause any harm, and then they focus on rehabilitating them until they are ready to be out in society and they're no longer a threat. I would like to move toward that system to help people, because I think that there are people who are who are redeemable. Unfortunately, I think that there are also instances where people are irredeemable, and obviously that's a case-by-case basis. If we're talking about a mass murderer who shows absolutely no remorse and is not responding or reacting well to efforts to rehabilitate him or her, then we're having a different story. But I think the vast majority of people can be rehabilitated. It's just that we don't have a system in place that can make that happen.
Yeah. Look, one more thing about this. You're supposed to do it holistically, right? You're supposed to have mental health. You're supposed to have better prisons. You're supposed to have, cash bail depending on the circumstances, depending on a lot of different factors. Is it a violent crime? Is the person potentially going to cause danger to the community? You're supposed to, I've said for 20 years on this show now, I don't understand why rape is allowed in prison. And I don't understand why that's the thing that everybody views as normal. Obviously, we're not going to fund anything about the prisons. Obviously, they're going to be hellholes. Obviously, we're going to stuff a lot of people that didn't do any crimes or minor crimes into those prisons and have them live a living nightmare. And everybody's fine with it. I'm not fine with it. No, we need to reform that, right? But the extremes are not correct. I'm not going to let Dylan Roof out, the killer in Charleston, because, we don't have the whole system yet, and we don't have the mental health part of it. We didn't do the rehabilitation part of it. Now let's just let him out, right? No. Do it holistically, and let's get it right. And we obviously don't have any of it right now. And Anna, I'll disagree slightly with one part of it.
Sure.
Yeah, I hear you. Rehabilitation is wonderful. And the Norwegian model is shockingly effective. And should we go towards that? Absolutely. But yes, sometimes it's for prison is for incapacitation. Some people are irredeemable, and I know we're progressive, so our hearts go no, everybody's redeemable. Have you met people? Okay, and so I don't say that lightly, and that would be a very, I hope, a small category. But sometimes you have to take people out of society. If you put Charles Manson back into society, he would have led another death cult. He says he would have. So what do you want us to do? So anyway, but I don't want people to overfocus on that portion of the story. Remember, the number one reason why we have nonstop massacres in America is guns, an ocean of guns.